Well, the Oscar nominations are in, and I don't care either. But it is interesting to note that the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and other wastes of God's precious gift of life have chosen to nominate movies no one saw, celebrating perversions no one cares about, in order to parade a virtue they don't have to an audience that is no longer there. In doing this, Hollywood is sending a message to the people formerly known as moviegoers. And the message is this, and I quote, "Screw you. We hate you. Come and see our movies. Die, you scum. Look how pretty we are in our designer gowns. You stink. You're stupid. You live in the Midwest, which has cooties. Please love us. Please read an article about how we sleep with each other and then break up. We hate you. We hate you. We hate you. Pay attention to us. Look, I'm wearing a dress even though I'm a boy. Don't I disgust you? Why don't you love me? Look, I made a movie about boys who sleep with other boys and hate their fathers. Why didn't you go see my movie, Daddy? Because you suck, you stink, you're hateful and awful. Love me, I hate you. Watch my Oscar show where I wear a pretty dress and get a golden statue. Then bugger off and die because you stink just like my daddy. Die, die, die. Love me, die." Unquote. Don't blame me. That's the message from Hollywood. I'm just reading it out loud. Now, to give you an idea of just how few people are going to be watching an award show that was once a shared American cultural moment on the order of the Super Bowl, let me give you a rundown of some of the crappiest nominees. There's The Brutalist, a 3.5-hour movie about an architect named Laszlo Toth, which is also the name of the Hungarian madman who in 1972 attacked Michelangelo's Pietà with a hammer because he thought he was God and should therefore be able to destroy everything that humans find holy and beautiful, kind of like Disney with the Star Wars franchise. Then there's Anora, a attempt to normalize what was once called prostitution, but is now called sex work by Hollywood leftists and pimps, but I repeat myself. And of course, there's Amelia Perez, a musical about a transsexual drug lord that got a 22 audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes. That's not a percentage, that's the actual number of people who made up the audience for Amelia Perez. Now, some of you may be thinking, oh, Klavan, don't pick on Hollywood. After all, the people there just had everything they own consumed by a conflagration that is the merest hint of what eternity is going to look like for them if they keep making movies glorifying prostitution, perversion, and brutalist architecture. And anyway, even though their movies suck, it'll still be fun to watch them stand up with their jackpot jeans draped in designer gowns and praise themselves for spitting on the values of what used to be their audience until they started spitting on our values by making films glorifying perversion, prostitution, and brutalist architecture. And of course, what could be more edifying than watching one of these uniquely privileged, gifted, and beautiful moral dung heaps in human form take time off from having sex with his second ex-wife before picking up his abandoned child at rehab to give him a lift home to his soon-to-be third ex-wife before abandoning both of them in order to marry his new girlfriend just as soon as she reaches the age of consent. I say, what could be more edifying than watching such a person win a now meaningless trophy for a morally repugnant movie no one saw, and then stand up and give a speech lecturing us on what moral choices we should make if we want to win his approval. So Hollywood, yes, we've received your message, and we filed it, and you, with our Kodak cameras and our Woodstock bell-bottoms and other things that used to seem like they would matter forever, but now no longer matter at all. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. All right, we are back laughing our way through the end of a leftist nightmare. I want to just show you what I got. I know I've been gone for a week, and I'll talk about that for a minute, but I want to show you what I got in the mail from my publishers at Zondervan. This is the ARC, the advanced reading copy of my new book, The Kingdom of Cain, Finding God in the Literature of Darkness. This is a book. First of all, I'm not going to plug this book forever because it doesn't come out until May. But you can pre-order it now on Amazon. I hope you will. I think it's one of the best things I ever wrote. I think if you like this show, you will love this book. It's a book about 3 murders and how they affected the arts and philosophy, movies, literature, and how those things revealed the secret meaning of those and possibly can lead us to wisdom and even happiness in an evil world. The Kingdom of Cain, Finding God in the Literature of Darkness. Please pre-order it if you can. I won't plug it forever because it's too far away from publication. But if you buy it now, the price is locked in and you can get it. Also, if you leave a comment and the comment absolutely excludes you from polite society, you've come to the right place. And we will read that comment on the air. Today's comment is from Internuts11. He says, bring back the old jingle, you verbose genius. The old jingle was great. It really was. But as things got darker in America, I felt it was kind of inadequate to the task at hand. And so we got rid of it. Listen, everything comes to an end. It's like the Trump happiness montage. It's like the reason we're not playing that. I know how great it was. I know it was hilarious and made me laugh every time we played it. But we're just putting it aside because the joke is dead. So it's done. When things are done, they're done. You got to let them go. That's where happiness lies. So let's just get right to today's episode. Walking Dead 2. This time, they're the news media. So let me just say, first of all, thank you so much. And I really mean this, for your prayers and your well wishes. I had a sick day that came upon me very suddenly last week. And it's the first sick day. I've tried to think it through. I think it's the first sick day I've taken anywhere in 20 years. I've never taken a sick day at the Daily Wire. My lung collapsed while doing a show. And this is true, partially collapsed while I was doing a show, and I did not go off the air. You know who did that same week? Matt Walsh, who's always complaining about this. But I showed up. But this time, at 11:45 at night, I thought, I'm a little under the weather. You know, what happened was I've been sick since Christmas. I've had this virus since Christmas, and it won't quite go away, and it was just about gone. And then I went out and covered the inauguration. Jeremy stole my hat because he's trying to kill me because he is afraid I'll make a joke that'll destroy his business. And I was walking around in 10-degree weather hour after hour, and I just collapsed. And it's 11:45 at night, and I think I'm sick, but I can go in. And by 12:05, I literally could not get out of bed or even get enough consciousness to text folks and tell them I wasn't coming in. So it was really, really fast. And I spent 2 days in bed, basically reading, because I couldn't do anything else. And that was, it's very good for me. It always gives me a chance to step back and take a look. And on Sunday, I wanted to watch the Chiefs game, the football game, because I know they're going to go to they're my team, and I think they're going to go and try and get try and get a three-peat at the Super Bowl. And I love watching them. And I love the crazy, overblown American ceremony where they put out a flag that's the size of South Dakota, and they sing the national anthem, and the stealth planes go over. And while I'm watching this, I was suddenly suffused with a sense of joy that Donald Trump is president. Now, I was really happy the night Donald Trump got elected, but it really didn't have to do with Trump. I said this before. It had to do with defeating the mainstream media, which I think is one of the prime sources of corruption and evil in our country. I think that they have been hiding the Democrats. When you speak truth to power on the right, but not on the left, you're not doing half your job. You're doing none of your job. You're doing the opposite of your job. And that's what these corrupt people have been doing. And we broke them. We destroyed them. We exposed them. And I could see we did by the fact that Trump was elected. But this was different. Suddenly, I felt this sense of joy at the fact that Donald Trump was the president of the United States. And it took me a moment to figure out why, and I did. And it's kind of unspeakable. It's something you don't say in public, but I'm going to tell you about it today, and I'll explain that before the show ends. But right now, I just want to tell you that in that moment, I felt something like this.
We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with healthcare and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. My, oh my, what a wonderful day.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. Yay! You'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay.
We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
Hey, if you are focused on creating a healthy, happy lifestyle, Balance of Nature fruits and veggies is the most convenient way to get whole fruits and vegetables daily. Nature's good at giving us the nutrients we need through our fruits and vegetables, so Balance of Nature takes fruits and vegetables, freeze dries them, turns them into a powder, and then puts them in a capsule. Pretty easy. You take your fruit and veggie capsules every day, and then your body knows what to do with them. Balance of Nature is just one ingredient of a balanced lifestyle and has no intention to replace a healthy diet, exercise, sleep, or any other healthy habits. It's intended to be used in concert with other healthy habits. I love them. I take them all the time and they make me feel better, and I think it's much easier than biting into things and having all that juice drip down your face. It would just be ridiculous. This is so easy. So go to balanceofnature.com and use promo code Klavan for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, you get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Klavan. And you say to yourself, I want some of that. How do I spell Klavan? Ha, 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 ha. Wouldn't you like to know?
K-L-A-V-A-N, there are no easy things.
Chapter 1, the dinosaurs are over. One of the things that I remain happy about, but it's just so dramatic now, is the absolute complete decimation of the mainstream media, their absolute destruction. Do you remember the vice presidential debate where Norah O'Donnell and Margaret Brennan, these two prissy elites who just thought they were so superior to everyone, were so-called fact-checking J.D. Vance, who was getting everything right, while letting Tim Walsh, and look, I don't want to say that Tim Walsh is secretly a homosexual serial killer. That would be a horrible, horrible thing to say. So I would never say that. But they let him off the hook while J.D. Vance was basically telling the truth and speaking intelligently about things. Well, this week, Norah O'Donnell stepped down as the anchor and managing editor of CBS News. She basically was told that she had to get out because the viewership has disappeared. They've laid off 2,000 staffers. They've got $500 million from the budget ahead of a planned merger with Skydance Media. And the evening news was getting nothing. It was getting no audience at all, especially in that key 25 to 54-year-old demographic, because they're getting them news from people they can trust, like us. And so J.D. Vance, so she's gone, bye-bye. And she'll still be working there, doing something else at a cut salary. And then J.D. Vance is what is being called a fiery interview with Margaret Brennan. And I don't think they see that we see them. I really don't. They have not changed a single bit. And I don't think it's too much to say that Margaret Brennan just exposed herself as this out-of-touch elitist who parrots these left-wing talking points without any kind of deep knowledge to back them up. And there was this one moment, I wish I could show you this. I know most people listen to the show, but I wish I could show it to you, but you can hear it too. They were talking about the fact that Trump has said maybe we're going to get rid of FEMA and just pay money out to localities that have been hit by disasters directly. Because FEMA, of course, was in, North Carolina, skipping over houses like the angel of death in Exodus. They were skipping over houses if they were marked, instead of with lamb's blood, with a Trump sign. So they weren't servicing people who supported Trump because that was the Biden administration. And Trump said, maybe we should get rid of them, just pay out the money. And remember, this is perfectly sensible. FEMA is not a rescue agency. They're not supposed to show up and rescue anybody. They're just supposed to dole out money to local people so they have the money to provide the emergency things they need. And listen to Margaret Brennan ask this question of J.D. Vance. It was remarkable. It's cut two.
FEMA has specialized expertise that some of these states just don't have.
Oh,
and,
Margaret,
in their arsenal. And
I wish
how
that they
will states who are lower income states, the Mississippis, the Kentuckys, the Alabamas, be able to do this for themselves without federal help?
Well, the president, to be clear, is not saying we're going to leave anybody behind. He's saying that in the way that we administer these resources, some of which is coming from the federal level, some of which is coming from the state level, we've got to get the bureaucrats out of the way and get the aid to the people who need it most.
It makes perfect sense. And I wish you could see her face when she says the word Kentucky. It's like, ooh, I stepped in some Kentucky. Ooh, there's a woman, like she's never been to any of these places. When I was a kid, I traveled all across the country, not in a luxurious way. I slept in hobo camps and stayed in cheap hotels. I talked to everybody. And I thought, wow, the people in the middle of this country are so much nicer than the movies show them to be. And I realized that the coasts were lying about the rest of the country. And I'd meet these people and they were always saying, well, I don't really have an education, so I don't want to talk. And then the next words out of their mouth would be so much smarter than all the well-educated elite coastal people who I hung out with and who I knew. And so that really changed my opinion about the country. But these journalists, they do not get it. They don't see what happened. They're like dinosaurs right after the asteroid hit. Remember, the asteroid hits and it wipes out the food sources of the dinosaurs, and the dinosaurs become extinct. But these are like dinosaurs who hear the asteroid hit, and they're like, well, that was traumatic, but I hope it won't damage our property values. No, you're done. You're finished. You're gone. Jim, look at me. I'm Jim Acosta, one of the worst offenders, even though he doesn't do it in public. He's on CNN where no one can see him. He is leaving CNN. They were going to give his spot to Wolf Blitzer, and they were going to put him on at midnight with the job, I think, of emptying the waste baskets and vacuuming the rug. I'm not sure he's suited to doing that. So here his goodbye, his fond farewell to all of those who never watched him is cut 3.
One final message. Don't give in to the lies. Don't give in to the fear. Hold on to the truth and to hope. Even if you have to get out your phone, record that message. I will not give in to the lies. I will not give in to the fear. Post it on your social media so people can hear from you too.
That's what I'm doing. What I'm doing is I just have a big picture of Jim Acosta stuck on my head. So I remember, don't give in to the lies. Whose lies? Jim Acosta's. Jim Acosta was one of the most dishonest so-called journalists on TV. Here is just a cut from our friends at Newsbusters of just a short burst of what Jim Acosta took for journalism covering Donald Trump. It's cut 4.
At one point during this address, the president referred to the coronavirus as a, quote, foreign virus. It's going to come across to a lot of Americans as smacking of xenophobia. The president seems to harbor racist feelings about people of color. He also continued to paint immigrants as criminals when they come across the border illegally. Donald Trump's radical ultra-nationalist agenda beginning to take shape this morning. The president of the United States looking like a wannabe dictator. A hard-right Supreme Court appears poised to turn back the clock to the 1970s. Jake, I think our founding fathers are probably rolling in their graves right now. What are you, the voter, prepared to do to hold accountable those politicians who choose Trump over American democracy? Fox News, they've been on this rampage about critical race theory. This is just the latest outrage device over at Fox, is it not?
I have to tell you something. A lot of commentary on Fox, and you can take it or leave it. There is more true journalism on the Bret Baier Hour, the special report, in that hour than there is on CNN in a week. I mean, easily. That's not journalism. I'm sorry. It's not even good invective. It's just this kind of propaganda that he's spewing out as the opposite of journalism. Bye, Felicia. He's gone. Nora's gone. Margaret has exposed herself for what she is. And then topping this period off, there was the magnificent debut of Carolyn Leavitt, I believe she pronounces her name, Carolyn Leavitt, who is the youngest White House press secretary. She's 12 years old. She's just sort of her 13th birthday. I don't actually mean that as an insult. She's a highly talented, intelligent young lady, but she looks to me like, when a cop pulls you over, when you're my age and a cop pulls you over, he looks like a 7-year-old kid wearing his daddy's cop uniform. It's like, I'm going to give you a ticket. And go like, okay, kid, just give me a ticket and pretend you're going to give me a ticket and let me go home. And then you realize, oh my God, he's an actual police officer. So Carolyn looks to me like a child, but let's compare her to Karine Jean Identity Hire. Now, people sometimes thought it was wrong of me to say that Karine Jean Identity Hire was an identity hire. It was her name. I was just giving you her name, Karine Jean Identity Hire. This was how she introduced herself, cut 5.
I am obviously acutely aware that my presence at this podium represents a few firsts. I am a Black, gay, immigrant woman, the first of all 3 of those to hold this position.
And let me just remark, who cares? We don't care. She was awful at what she did. And now Carolyn comes out and she says how she's going to run the place. She's asked this BS question. They've been asking this question since Jimmy Carter. Will you tell us the truth? Now, of course, what she's going to tell is what the president is saying. That is her job, to report what the president is saying and doing. And she takes the flack if it turns out not to be true, but that's all she can do. They don't even let press secretaries into the inner briefings because they don't want them to have to lie. Her job is to relate to the press what the president is saying. And here's her response, cut 6.
Since you brought up Truth Seek, I would like to point out, while I vowed to provide the truth from this podium, we ask that all of you in this room hold yourselves to that same standard. We know for a fact there have been lies that have been pushed by many legacy media outlets in this country about this president, about his family, and we will not accept that. We will call you out when we feel that your reporting is wrong or there is misinformation about this White House. So yes, I will hold myself to the truth, and I expect everyone in this room to do the same.
ouch, that's going to ruin the entire business model of most of those guys. I mean, it's just amazing, even the tone of these press conferences compared to Joe Biden. What kind of ice cream do you like? Are you feeling okay, Joe? You look sharp as a tack, Joe. You're doing great, Joe. Suddenly they're asking these tough questions. And then there was this announcement, which I cannot tell you how huge this is. Well, I'll explain why it's huge in just a minute, but let her make the announcement of now the fact they're going to bring in the new media. This is cut 7.
This White House believes strongly in the First Amendment, so it's why our team will work diligently to restore the press passes of the 440 journalists whose passes were wrongly revoked by the previous administration. We're also opening up this briefing room to new media voices who produce news-related content and whose outlet is not already represented by one of the seats in this room. We welcome independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, and content creators to apply for credentials to cover this White House.
So why is that important? Because we were blacklisted at the bigs. Conservatives were blacklisted at the networks. There are no conservatives at the networks. There are no people who don't live on the coasts at the networks or at the New York Times, which is just gets a feeding, is fed by the Ivy Leagues, and only people who are rich enough to do internships can work there. It is completely limited to elite, upper-class, left-wing people. And they say, well, why don't you build your own news media? And then you build your own news media and they block you. If you're in the New York Post, they take you off Twitter when you report a true story. And they'll say, well, why don't you build your own Twitter? Well, guess what? Elon Musk took over Twitter, and now we do have our own Twitter. And what they're also going to do is flood the zone with new reporters. Remember when Jim Acosta manhandled that female intern and Trump tried to ban him from the press room, which he should have done, and the court said, no, you can't do that for some reason. It was some strange reading of the First Amendment. Well, now, instead of banning them, just going to outnumber them. They're just going to bring in some other people. And I saw our own Daily Wire's own Mary Margaret Olahan asking Trump a question, which I thought was exciting. That is going to change everything. When the dinosaurs became extinct, it meant that all those little mammals who were hiding away in the trees could come creeping out and start to become bigger mammals, primates, human beings, and start civilization. That is what is happening now. The smalls are coming out, and soon they'll have reporting power, and soon they'll have the kind of reporting power that the bigs have, and soon they'll be the bigs, and the bigs will just be these bones that we put in museums and say like, oh, look, that's what a big, stupid, useless beast the media used to be as we visit them in our natural history museums. This is a glorious moment. So I have to tell you, I always make jokes about how I never sleep, and I never sleep. It's true, but I've been ill, and you got to get some sleep when you're ill. So I've been having my dinner and just knocking myself out. And one of the ways that I help myself get to sleep is with Beam's Dream Powder. It is a science-backed, healthy nighttime blend for sleep. It will just change everything for you if you have a hard time getting to sleep. It puts me right out, and I needed that sleep to get better, and it has been great. With better sleep, my energy, my focus is coming back, and I feel like I can actually get here and do the show instead of pitching forward onto my laptop so that you have to call an ambulance, which would ruin your day. Other sleep aids can cause next-day grogginess, but Dream contains a powerful, all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. So now, as I'm starting to feel better, I still like this stuff. It tastes good. It's part of my nightly routine. It's made all the difference. If you're like me, if you need your sleep, you're struggling to get sleep, try Dream. It will help you feel your best every single day. The ultimate sleep refresh for the new year. Try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder and get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Klavan and use code Klavan at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Klavan and use code Klavan for up to 40% off. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking BEAM. I know how to spell Beam, but how do you spell Klavan? It's KLAVAN. Chapter 2, A New Age, now begins. So while these clowns and dinosaurs, these liars and privileged elites, the media, are being shoveled out the door, in comes MAGA. And now remember, it's really difficult to, even as long as I've been talking about this, it's really difficult to understand how the culture works and how the media works, that it surrounds you with what in the Middle Ages they would have called a cloud of unknowing. And so even we are affected by it, and certainly those who lead the nation, the government are affected by it. They're in this little place, Washington, D.C. They're surrounded by the Washington Post and the New York Times and NBC, ABC, and CBS, and they think that's the people. And our voices stop mattering to them. They just want to please these people. We all want to please the people we work for, the people, we come, to present ourselves to, except for me, because I'm on a mission from God. But all these people, they want to please. And so when you see the rhinos, the people we call rhinos, they're reacting to this cloud that surrounds them, telling them, oh no, it's not normal to think that they're only men and women. That's not normal. That's not right. And now suddenly that haze is dissipating, and also these new people are coming in, and the stuff Trump is doing is amazing. Ending gender-affirming care for children, which, as I have said a million times, if Joseph Mengele, the evil Nazi doctor, had brought gender-affirming care for children to Hitler, Hitler would have said, who do you think I am, Hitler? We can't do that. It would have made Hitler blush. It is an atrocity. It is not a mistake. It is not, something we have to think about or talk about. It is an atrocity to mutilate our children on the basis of a theory with no scientific basis whatsoever. He's put an end to that. He's ending DEI. He's ending the military's focus on identity rather than killing our enemies. He's reviewing the wasteful spending of the government. They think he withdrew that freeze, but he didn't. He just withdrew the memo, and he's going to slow down that spending. It was like $50 million for condoms in Gaza, which they use to make incendiary devices to send over to Israel. He's trying to get the bureaucrats to quit, trying to shrink the government, which is very difficult because you got to shrink the government. But remember, when you shrink the government and then the left comes in and hires people, it counterbalances that. So you have to make sure you change the actual nature of the deep state, firing inspector generals who were just put in place to foil them. And they say, you can't do that. They're part of the executive branch. Yes, he can. Get them out of there. Firing corrupt prosecutors at DOJ. Amazing house cleaning. And the press, even the putatively right-wing press keeps saying, he's breaking with norms. He's breaking with norms. I think, are you kidding me? I've talked about this before, about the fact that Winston Churchill, in his memoir of being a young man, talks about going to a party before World War I with all the heads of Europe and a party after World War I with all the heads of Europe. And there were two different sets of people because World War I was the greatest failure of a leadership class in the West since maybe ancient days. And so the leadership was thrown out. Our leadership, the handling of the COVID disaster, was the greatest failure of the leadership since World War I, no question about it. And yet nobody's supposed to be punished. The press who lied to us, who tried to enforce government diktats that sometimes were based on false science, nobody's been punished up till now. No, Fauci, this still has a career and a reputation. He should be like, should be like that scene in Game of Thrones where he has to march naked through the streets while we throw vegetables at him. Nobody has paid the price for that. So my feeling is, please break with norms. And so all these people are coming in for their hearings, the Trump administration who are having hearings for the advice and consent of the Senate. And all I keep thinking about is that wonderful Larry Elder documentary, Uncle Tom. I don't know if you saw that. It's a really good documentary about the treatment of black people and why he's a conservative and all this. And in it, Herman Cain, you remember the pizza guy, Herman Cain, who ran for president? He tells a story about his father who suffered genuine racism. And his father, he says, was a wise man, but not an educated man. He was a smart man, but he just didn't have an education. And so when Herman Cain would go to his father and say, how do you feel when people say these horrible things about you? When people say that you're an Uncle Tom or they call you racial names? And his father said, I does not care. I does not care. And that's all I can think about as I'm watching these hearings. Pete Hegseth, did he cheat on his wife? Don't do that, Pete. Don't do that. But I does not care. I does not care. Because here's the thing. I want, when some Iranian dirtbag wakes up in the morning and says, I know a way I can kill Americans, and he goes to his sock drawer and opens his sock drawer to get a pair of socks for the day, I want there to be a Navy SEAL inside that sock drawer who blows his brains out. And if Pete Hegseth can do that, again, Pete, be faithful to your wife. You'll be happier. She'll be happier. Everybody you love will be happier. It's the right thing to do. It's in the Bible. Don't do it. But I does not care. It's none of my business. That's what I want. I want our enemies killed. I want them dead. I don't care if the people who kill them are black. I don't care if they're white. I don't care if they're Jewish, Christian, atheists. They're just, as long as they are trained military soldiers who can do the job and live up to the highest standards of lethality. I does not care what Pete Hegseth does in his spare time. You don't like Pat Bondi because she's going to throw out the people in the DOJ who persecuted Joe Biden's political opponent, who sent people like Navarro and Bannon to jail for doing things that Merrick Garland had done. I mean, you expect me to care about that? That's a bad thing? Oh, that's against norms. It's against norms. A norm to me is a guy in Cheers drinking beer because this is really bad stuff. I does not care. And, there are people I have misgivings about. Here's Tulsi Gabbard. She has said things that I disagree with. But listen to what she says when she sits down to make her statement. This is the difference. This is the result of the dinosaurs in the press dying out. This is cut 14.
The American people elected Donald Trump as their president not once, but twice. And yet the FBI and intelligence agencies were politicized by his opponents to undermine his presidency and falsely portray him as a puppet of Putin. Title I of FISA was used illegally to obtain a warrant to spy on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, using a Clinton campaign-funded false dossier as their so-called evidence. Biden campaign advisor Tony Blinken was the impetus for the 51 former senior intelligence officials' letter dismissing Hunter Biden's laptop as disinformation specifically to help Biden win the election. Former DNI James Clapper lied to this committee in 2013, denying the existence of programs that facilitated the mass collection of millions of Americans' phone and internet records.
Been spying on Americans, you've been falsifying documents, you've been breaking the law to stop them from voting for your opponents. And she's saying it right to them. And the reason that's happening is because that force shield that the press threw up is gone. And part of the reason it's gone is because of us, because we exposed them. And part of the reason is because we had a candidate and now have a president who does also, like Herman Cain's dad, does not care about what they say about him. And that's the reason that this is happening. And it's an amazing thing to watch this. I mean, I'm giving you the people I have misgivings about. Most of the appointees I love. I think they're great. I think they're going to do a great job. And I'm amazed at how intelligent they are and how well they defend themselves against these clowns. And the Democrats just look like idiots. And they don't have the press to cover for them anymore. We see them. Everybody sees them. And they're the naked emperors. It's an amazing, amazing experience. I hope you're all enjoying this as much as I am. I hope you're not getting distracted by this little, aggravation or that little aggravation. If you're paying attention to politics, these are the good old days, folks. Remember, the golden ages don't look like golden ages while you're living them because there's still wars, there's still corruption, there's still stupidity and evil in the world. But this is the beginning of a golden age, and I hope you're enjoying it and seeing what it is. RFK, another guy. I have real misgivings about RFK. I hope he's going to do a good job. I understand why Trump gave him a job. But even what he said was kind of amazing. Here's cut 8.
Americans by and large, do not like the Affordable Care Act. People are on it. They don't like Medicaid. They like Medicare. And they like private insurance. We need to listen to what they would prefer to be on private insurance. Most Americans, if they can afford to be, will be on private insurance. We need to figure out ways to improve care, particularly for elderly, for veterans, for the poor in this country. And Medicaid, the current model is not doing that. I would ask, any of the Democrats who are chuckling just now, do you think all that money, the $900 billion that we're sending to Medicaid every year, has made Americans healthy? Do we think it's working for anybody? Are the premiums low enough?
See, they're chuckling because they know the press is there to make sure that these are sacred cows that no one can criticize. But they're not. They're gone. They are gone. They're dust. They're dinosaurs just waiting for the food to finally disappear so they can all die and become fossils. And then they don't get it. He's telling the truth. Best speech that has been made so far that I've seen during these hearings was not made by one of the appointees. It was made by Rand Paul. An amazing speech. He was talking about, he was reacting to the fact that they're picking on RFK Jr., for asking questions about vaccines. Vaccines are a miracle. Don't let anybody tell you differently. They have saved more lives than anything else. They are just an absolute great thing. But that doesn't mean you don't ask questions about them. That doesn't mean they don't have bad side effects as well. I mean, he talked about the fact that they want your baby at 1 day old to take a hepatitis B vaccine. You get that from sexual activity and drug use. Your baby doesn't need it, but you can decide later on whether you want to do it. And the point that Rand Paul makes, and God bless him for this, is this stuff isn't holy writ. This is science. When they talk about science, they talked about the COVID vaccine like you were a bad person if you didn't want to take it. I should take it because I'm an older guy, but if you're a younger, healthy person, you did not need it, and the risks were greater than the risks of the disease. And this is just a sliver. Go and listen to the whole thing, but this is a sliver of what Rand Paul said, cut 15.
So all this blather about the science says this and the science says that, no, it doesn't. The science actually shows that no healthy child in America died from COVID. Look it up. No healthy child died from COVID. And so the thing is that it's 1,000-fold greater. So if you ask me my advice as a physician, if you were 65 or older or overweight and some other conditions, I would have said, hell yes, I'd take the COVID vaccine. The risks of the disease were real and much greater than the vaccine. But if you ask me, should my healthy 6-month-old get it? See, these are the nuances you're unwilling to talk about because there's such a belief in submission. Submit to the government. Do what you're told. There is no discussion. There ought to be a debate. You're not going to let him have the debate because you're just going to criticize and say, it is this, and admit to it, or we're not going to appoint you. But it's more complicated than that. And this is why people distrust government.
Yes, and also because they're a bunch of corrupt, incompetent louts. They closed our churches. They put masks on our children. They closed our schools. They told us we had to show up with identity cards showing we'd had taken medicine we didn't want to take if we wanted to go out to dinner. They oppressed us. They tried to put our candidate in prison. They put some of his aides in prison, and we're supposed to trust them. And now we're supposed to worry that their norms are being violated. I does not care, and neither does anybody else. So again, I've been sleeping like crazy. I just have to get better. And I've made all these jokes about my Helix mattress, that because I stay up a lot, and I wake up in the night, I read a lot. I love my Helix mattress even more because it's so comfortable. But I found out something when I got sick. It's really good to sleep on too. Really, if you're actually sleeping and I'm virtually unconscious, it is a great way to sleep. The Helix mattress, one of the things that I love about it is I get very hot at night. And of course, my wife gets cold. So Helix mattress does incredibly well with temperature regulation, which makes it so you don't wake up, drenched in sweat. It's easy to connect to other wearable devices so you can actually see the data to back up your sleep improvements. And what makes Helix different is they don't just sell you a random mattress. They actually match you with the perfect one for your body and sleep style. So whether you're a side sleeper, back sleeper, or somewhere in between, they've got you covered. And when you find the right match, you'll wonder how you ever slept on anything else. Right now is actually the perfect time to upgrade your sleep because Helix is offering an incredible deal. Go to helixsleep.com/Klavan. You will get 20% off site-wide plus 2 free Dream pillows with any mattress purchase. That's helixsleep.com/Klavan for 20% off site-wide plus 2 free Dream pillows with any mattress purchase. helixsleep.com/Klavan. No E's in Klavan. I just make it look so easy. Chapter 3, and stay out. Now, I want to talk about another effect of having this press decimated, because this is about storytelling. And storytelling is something I know quite a lot about. And it's one of the reasons I spotted how deeply the press affects, and Hollywood has affected our culture and turned us against ourselves. It turned us against ourselves. It made people hate our country, apologize for our country. I always used to drive me nuts when one of the Bushes would say, well, now we're going to have a kinder, gentler nation. I think it's kinder and gentler than the peace and prosperity brought to us by Ronald Reagan. He was playing to the press. When George W. Bush said, we're going to have compassionate conservatism, I thought more compassionate, leaving people free and wealthy in a peaceful, strong country. You know what? How much more compassionate do we have to get than that? That's playing to the press. That is the cloud of unknowing that the press creates. And I want to show you how it's done in a very specific way with illegal immigrants. I believe that every single one of these people should be thrown out of the country. And I'm sorry, I know some of them, you're not going to be able to do that. They've been here too long. They've kind of integrated into the country. It's not their fault. They're probably law-abiding citizens. Fine. But there was a flood, an invasion of illegals during the Biden administration. It was intentional. They lied about it. They lied about it repeatedly. They gave us that po-faced, the border's secure. Well, they poured in and poured in. The Trump administration in its first week, and I don't have the latest numbers, but it doesn't matter. They're deporting thousands a day. They deported 7,300 illegal immigrants in the first in the first week, and they're arresting people who've committed heinous crimes. Tom Homan, who is the head of ICE, pointed this out about how this was going to be covered. This is cut 10.
We're going to take a lot of hate. We're going to be sued every day, numerous times. I think you'll see the left try to control the media. They're going to show the first crying female, first crying child, and say how inhumane we are. But they won't talk about 340,000 children that they've failed to take care of. They're not going to talk about the young women who have been in this country at the hands of criminal cartels. We're not going to talk about the hundreds of angel moms and dads who buried their children. You want to talk about family separation? They buried their children because their children were killed by a member of a criminal cartel or someone that's not supposed to be here.
I don't pretend to be Superman, but I think I can safely say that I am the securely heterosexual man. But every time I see Tom Homan, I just want to give him a big sloppy kiss on the top of his head because he's just speaking basic truths. They're going to show you the crying mother. They're going to show you the crying child. But the thing is, there are always mothers crying. There are always children crying. And I feel for all of them. We all feel for all of them. And that's why as a storyteller, I know I can manipulate my audience to have compassion for anybody. You can have, it's been done a million times. I can put out on a building ledge and you will go like, I hope he doesn't fall, even though the guy should fall. He should fall and be crushed, but you will care about him. You will identify with him. So that when they show you a child crying in Gaza, when they show you a child crying at the border, when they show you a mother going, I'm being sent back to Mexico, the question is not that. It's who is to blame. It's the people who let them in. It's the people who Israeli women to death. Those are the people to blame. Yes, we feel sorry for them, but no, that does not mean that people should take over our borders. And so, which brings me to Trump and the reason. I know Trump has a big mouth. He says things that I wish he didn't say sometimes, all that stuff. Bah, 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 bah. I does not care. I does not care. In fact, I'm coming to like it because there was a moment when the socialist president of Colombia refused to take a plane full of migrants that we were sending back, illegals that we were sending back. And Trump, I believe this story is true. He was on the golf course and he took out his phone and said, do that and I'll destroy your economy. And they said, okay, we'll take him back. This is cut 11, Trump describing this, why he did this.
For the first time in history, we're loading dangerous and illegal aliens into military aircraft and flying them back to the places from which they came. You probably read about Colombia 2 days ago. They said, no, we're not taking them. I said, we're going to take them. You're going to take them. You're going to like it, too. You're going to take them.
It's an old line from from the Maltese Falcon? When you get slapped, you'll take it and like it. People have the sads. They're going to be sad people. Children have the sads. And it's sad. I'm sad for them. But what story could not be reported that way? You could show children crying amidst the ruins of Berlin. Look at the medieval Americans. They bombed Berlin. It was a civilian place. You can look at the people in Nagasaki and Hiroshima who were destroyed by the atom bomb. But it saved 100,000 American lives and possibly more and ended a war that would have never won without it. You have to see the whole picture. This is a very, very tough world. This is a world where you have to play by very tough rules. And this is a world where it's always people are suffering. And it's sad that people suffer. I wish nobody suffered. I wish there were never any wars. Of course I do. I'm sure you do too. But that's the world that we're in. And so you make the world better by realizing what the world is, telling the truth. And that is exactly what has not been happening. This is what the press, our lying press, has not been doing. It's not liberal. It's not liberal, the kind of liberalism that supports the rights of individuals to open our borders, to not insist that the law be obeyed by the person, the president of the United States, tasked with executing. That's why he's the executive. He's tasked with executing the laws that are made. You want to change those laws, debate them, show us what they are. Vote for them so we can hold you to account, but they never do. And this is true of Republicans too. They never touch these laws and then they go on Fox News and get clips, but that's going to come to an end. It's already coming to an end. And that clip of Donald Trump speaks to why I felt as I said at the beginning of the show, why I felt such a rush of joy as I was watching the national anthem and the stealth planes going by and all that kind of overblown American patriotism that, I'm sorry, I love so much. This is what it was that I suddenly realized about Donald Trump that has made me love him even more than I did before, and I'll explain it to you in the next chapter. Did you know that American homeowners have over $32 trillion in equity, and criminals are targeting that money with a growing scam the FBI calls house stealing? This scam allows criminals to transfer your title out of your name using a one-page document they file at the county. Then they can take out loans against it or even sell it behind your back. And the most concerning part, you don't find out about it until collection or foreclosure notices start arriving in your mailbox, leaving you with a financial and legal nightmare. The best way to protect your equity is with Home Title Lock's exclusive $1 million triple lock protection. This service offers 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and if fraud should occur, their U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title. So, when was the last time you checked on your title? If you're like me, the answer is never, and that's exactly what scammers are counting on. The good news is we've partnered with Home Title Lock to offer you all 25% off their services. Go to HomeTitleLock.com, use my promo code Klavan25 to save 25% off, and you'll also get a free title history report to ensure you're not already a victim. And make sure you check out the $1 million triple lock protection details when you get there. The link is below. That's HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Klavan25. Final chapter, the law of the jungle. Now, a lot of people in the commentariat, including at the DailyWire, sometimes laugh at intellectuals' attempts to drape MAGA and Donald Trump with a governing philosophy. This was something that happened during the Reagan administration. Reagan was a very thoughtful, very well-read man who knew basically what he was doing. But it took intellectuals like Bill Buckley, William F. Buckley, to sort of write, this is the philosophy that he is acting out, because Reagan, as the executive, is a man of action. He is acting. He's not always thinking. He's sometimes compromising, right? He's not never getting, you always have to zig and zag in a democratic government. You can't always get what you want. You compromise, you go backwards, you take one step back and you take two steps forward. And, Buckley said, yes, but overall, this is what is happening. And people who think for a living tend to laugh at Donald Trump and say, oh, he's just a gut politician. He just acts on his gut. He doesn't know what he's doing. And every attempt to cover him with a governing philosophy or sort of demonstrate his governing philosophy comes to nothing, comes to failure. That used to be true. I think in his first administration, that was true. He was operating entirely on his gut. I think he's had 4 years to think. I think God not only saved his life to make America great again, God gave him 4 years to think. And he, as I've said a million times, he is not a stupid man. He is a gut guy and he's a common sense guy. But now you can discern, especially in foreign policy, a philosophy behind what he's doing. And I'm going to call that philosophy the law of the jungle. There's a poem by Rudyard Kipling. A funny thing, I was in church one day at coffee hour and I was saying to a friend, Rudyard Kipling was right about everything, right? Because he's hated as being racist and imperialist, and he was imperialist. He was racist for, in the way people were in his time, but he wasn't particularly racist. He had a lot of respect for people of other races, even though he put it in terms that we would now consider racist. And I said to this friend of mine, Rudyard Kipling was right about everything. And so help me, I got home from church and there was a text from Ben Shapiro, who was lying on a beach in Hawaii reading Rudyard Kipling. He said, Rudyard Kipling was right about everything. So Ben and I just had a mind meld, which is a very frightening experience, by the way. And there's a poem that Rudyard Kipling put in the second Jungle Book called The Law of the Jungle. It's not one of his best poems, but it just opens with these two lines. This is the law of the jungle, as old and as true as the sky. And the wolf that shall keep it may prosper, but the wolf that shall break it must die. And then he goes into all the details of the law of the jungle. And it just describes the fact that there are certain things that may not be nice, that may not be fair, that may not even be good, but if you don't follow them, you die. And that's an important point in governance, okay? Because, here's a sad story. This is the kind of thing that I should never say out loud, but I'm going to say it out loud. A lot of the women who wind up in the hospital because they were beaten by their boyfriends or husbands threw the first punch. I don't have the exact figures, but it's a substantial number of women who got in a fight with their husbands or their boyfriends, and they threw a punch, the husband punched them back, and the woman is in the hospital. If you watch movies in which girls beat up men and win sword fights and things like that, you think, well, why would that be? But that's what happens. A woman punches a man, her hand breaks, and if he gets angry and he doesn't restrain himself, he's going to punch her back. That's the law of the jungle. Now, if you're a person like me who loves women and wants to have a wonderful life with a wonderful woman and respect her and never raise a hard hand against, I never raise my voice to my wife because I'm so enamored of her, you have to find that woman. You have to find a woman who doesn't need to be smacked around in order to behave in a civilized way. And that's the way you do it. You avoid the women who don't respect you. If a woman respects her husband, obviously her husband should treat her like the queen of the world. But if a woman hits her husband, he should never hit her back, but he will. She will learn what it's like to live with somebody who's bigger, meaner, tougher, stronger than she is. That's the law of the jungle. It's not right. It's not good. The guy should be arrested, but it will happen. That is the way things work. And that's why Andrew Tate has some kind of panache with young people, because he says this out loud and nobody ever says it out loud. That doesn't create a responsibility in you to beat your wife. It creates a responsibility in you to find a woman who will respect you so you can treat her as she deserves to be treated. So the law of the jungle ultimately will be obeyed. And this is why Christianity is not a governing philosophy. When Jesus Christ said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and unto God what is God's, he didn't just mean your tax dollars. He meant the right to run the country. God doesn't run the country. Christianity doesn't run the country, because Christianity as an individual may call on you to die to speak the truth. You may have, as a Christian, you may be called to die or lose your audience or lose your income to speak the truth. That's something that may happen to a Christian, but no leader can call on his country to die to speak the truth. The leader is there to preserve the country, and he is going to have to do what has to be done to keep that country alive. That's the law of the jungle. The law of the jungle is the wolf who disobeys it will die. The country who disobeys the law of the jungle will die. No man can call on another person to make a sacrifice. A guy may say, yes, I'm lying, I'm compromising my principles, but I have to feed my children. Then you have to say, hey, all of us, when we feed our children, lose a little bit of our principles because we have to do things that we have to do to make sure those kids get that food stuck in their faces so they can live and thrive and be. That's now a higher priority than something else. So those sacrifices that Christianity calls on you to make, it only can call on you to make. You can't call on other people to make them. You cannot make that judgment for other people. And because the wolf who does not follow the law of the jungle will die, we want our good countries to follow the law of the jungle, just like we want our good husbands to ensure they have a wife who respects them, not with a hard hand, but by finding those women who will respect them and marrying one of those, right? Because if you disobey the law of the jungle, you die. We do not want the good countries to die. We want the countries that are free to die. We want America to live and thrive. We want Israel to live and thrive. We want Britain as it used to be to live and thrive. Right now, I'm not sure it's the Britain that it used to be, but that old one, we want it to thrive. Now, here's America's situation. I'm going to send this over to Neil Ferguson, a very intelligent historian. I frequently disagree with Neil Ferguson, and I kind of disagree with him here, but he said a very important thing. He wrote a book about it many years ago about whether or not America is an empire. And here's what Ferguson said, cut 12.
The United States doesn't think of itself as an empire. Indeed, it thinks of itself as having come out of a struggle against empire, war of independence. But from the vantage point of most non-Americans, it looks pretty much like an empire. How do I define it? Well, the United States projects its power pretty much everywhere in the world. It has vast military capabilities on land, at sea, in the air, in space, and it has troops deployed in multiple countries on every continent just about. So functionally, the United States does a lot of the things that we associate with empires through the ages.
Now, I disagree with him because I think we have the power of an empire. We are a mighty nation. We do project power, but we don't usurp the governments of the people we have conquered. Even the people that we've conquered in wars, we don't take over their territory. We don't go into their territory at will. Britain doesn't have an American installed as prime minister. We don't send Pontius Pilate over to run Israel. We are an empire by strength and force of arms and prosperity, but we are good Christian people. We are good Christian people in this empire, and we don't want to be tyrannical. We don't want to force people to pay us tribute. However, if you want to have a country run by good Christian people, you have to follow the law of the jungle so that country can live. You have to obey the law of the jungle, just like the wife doesn't throw a punch at her husband if she doesn't want to end up in the hospital. Our friends have to obey the fact that we are the big dog. They don't have to pay tribute, right? But they can't put tariffs on our goods and expect us not to put tariffs on their goods. And when Trump says, oh, I'm going to put tariffs on your goods and destroy your economy, it's like, oh, you can't do that. You can't. No, yes, we can, because they can't stand it. They're going to have to relent. So how about not putting tariffs on our goods? How about you treat us as if we're the big dog, and then we can treat you with kindness, the kindness of a country run by Christian men. You can't cross our borders illegally, or we send you home. We arrest you and send you home, and your country's going to take you home, because if they don't, we're going to destroy their economy. Do children cry? I does not care. That's the law of the jungle. You cannot invade our country and get away with it. If you depend on our military to protect you, you have to pay into the potty. If you say you're going to be part of NATO, you can't just say, NATO protects us, but we don't have to pay our share. Yes, you do. That's the law of the jungle. You can't just count on us to do that. And so the newspaper's like, oh, he's destroying NATO. Hey, NATO is us protecting everybody. That's what NATO is. NATO is Britain not being invaded by, the Chinese, because they know they have to fight with us. That's what NATO is. So pay the amount you're supposed to pay, or get out. That's the law. You think, oh, but it's been so great for 50, 60 years. Too bad. That's over now. Obey the law of the jungle. The reason that countries in Europe can afford single-payer health care and Bernie Sanders can go, I happen to believe that health care is a human right. It's not a human right, because it depends on the work of other people. You do not have a right to the work of other people. As good Christian people, we want to make sure everybody gets taken care of, but first obey the law of the jungle. So if you have single-payer health care, you better pay the full price for your medicine, because we're not going to pay for your R&D and then send that medicine over to you and let you have it. That's not the way it happens. And that's already happening. The British don't get all the medicines that we should get. Why should we pay for it if they don't? You can't come here unless we let you in. You can't be part of NATO unless you pay your share. I don't care if you're suffering. Once the law of the jungle is fulfilled, then we can be nice. Then we can be friends. Then we can do the things that America and only America does. But basically, these people have been taking advantage of us outside the country, and inside the country, they've been using this fake Christianity to sort of make us feel bad about who we are. Oh, you enslaved black people. Too bad. I wasn't here. You weren't here. The black people weren't here. Over, done. It's the past. If I could change it, I would. I would travel back in one of those machines from the TV shows, and I would change it all. I can't. It's here. You're here now. I'm here now. I didn't do anything. I'm not taking the blame. That's all there is to it. It's just they have abused our moral sense to make us think that we should govern as Christians. We should be Christians as we govern, but we govern according to the law of the jungle, or else we die. We may be an empire. Maybe Ferguson is right. I feel that that's a misuse of language, it's a sloppy use of language, because if we're a new kind of empire run by Christian men. That is the difference. We're a new kind of empire who don't want to take your territory over. We want to use our power to protect your freedom. We don't want to take tribute from you, but you got to play by the rules of the jungle. Admiral Nelson, famous story of one of the greatest sea warrior ever lived. A Spanish captain, I believe it was, surrendered to him and knew that Admiral Nelson was a good guy who would not humiliate him in surrender. So he approached Admiral Nelson and he stuck out his hand to shake Nelson's hand. And Nelson said, first your sword, then your hand. First, you got to surrender your sword to the guy who defeated you. Then I'll shake hands with you. Then I'll treat you with dignity. That's America. That is America. That is first your sword, then your hand. First obey the rules. And we haven't. We've been mistreated within and without. What right do you have to keep these poor Mexican people out of your country? We have the right of our border. That's the border. That's the law of the jungle. Stay out or get out. And once you get out, stay out. And suddenly that was what it was. As I was sitting there watching this football game, and I love football, that enough fake Jesus. Enough Jesus wouldn't deport anyone. Jesus' kingdom was not of this world. America's kingdom is very much of this world. Jesus wouldn't make Gaza children cry. Jesus could surrender his life for the good of mankind. Israel ain't surrendering its life for anybody, and it shouldn't. It's not what they're there to do. Their kingdom is of this world. In this world, we have to live by the law of the jungle before we can create people who break that law to become Christian saints. That's the way it works. It's the only way it works, because if you don't obey the law of the jungle, you die, right? So this is like the real world. And this is why, as I was sitting watching that TV show, I suddenly thought, thank God the lies are over. Thank God fake Jesus is gone. Thank God real Jesus can come back and people can worship him in this beautiful free country where we are defended from the evil of people, where we defend our borders, where we expect our allies to toe the line and do their fair share, where we can have a free market so that our pharmaceutical companies can invent great drugs and we can pay lesser prices for them if we keep them away from single payer healthcares who abuse us. The wolf of America, the big wolf, should not die. It is a great, great country. We have nothing, zero to apologize for. We have zero to apologize for. I'm glad the big wolf, Donald Trump, is back in office, governing according to the law of the jungle, so that we, the rest of us, can be good Christian men. Here is an incredible tool and also a fun tool that will help you jumpstart your health in this new year. It'll give you real-time insights into your metabolism through something as simple as your breath. It's called Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. All you need to do is breathe into it first thing in the morning, and you'll know exactly what's happening with your metabolism. It'll tell you whether you're burning fats or carbs, and based on your measurements, Lumen creates a personalized nutrition plan just for you. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health goals for all those 2025 New Year resolutions, if you haven't already broken them. Your metabolism is your body's engine, powering everything you do. When you optimize your metabolic health, you can experience improved energy levels, better fitness results, and enhanced sleep quality. I've personally found that understanding my metabolism transforms my approach to health. Take the next step to improving your health. Go to lumen.me/Klavan to get 20% off your Lumen. That is LUMEN.me/Klavan for 20% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. But let me tell you, if you're me, you have to know how to spell Klavan, because I am Klavan. It's Klavan. All right, new and streaming now on DailyWire Plus, The Making of Am I Racist? Clearing the AIR. Get an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at how Matt Walsh, director Justin Folk, and the cast and crew created the film that became a box office hit comedy and the #1 documentary of the decade. There's only one way to see it. Watch it now at DailyWire.com with your DailyWire Plus membership. If you haven't seen Am I Racist yet, start there, then stream the new special, The Making of Am I Racist? Clearing the AIR. Watch it all now, only on DailyWire Plus. All right, Klavan Klapbacks.
I will not give in to the lies.
He's a loser, and the kids let him know it.
I will not give in to the fear.
I like her.
Reporting from Washington, I'm Jim Acosta.
Thank you. Next.
That's great. I love it. All right, Klavan Klapbacks, write in, ask your questions, have your criticisms. You can agree with me or you can be wrong. We'll read it anyway. It's Klavan Klapbacks, both with a K. Klavan is with a K. Klapbacks is with a K. K-L-A-P, backs at dailywire.com. Klavan Klapbacks at dailywire.com. This is from Seth. He says, you speak sometimes in your show and in your book, The Truth and Beauty, about why you're not a Catholic, because I don't want to be constrained to follow the leadership of the church all the time. He says, I wanted to ask you specifically about who you put your trust in to authorize theological doctrine. For example, you say that you think that every human being is fallible, hence you don't swear allegiance to the Pope's moral teachings, even when they're given from his magisterium. But I wonder why you then listen to anybody at all, including yourself. Are you your own Pope? Who do you give the authority to say this is right or this is wrong in the specific matters that Jesus doesn't address? Excellent question. I'm happy to answer it, and I will answer it metaphorically, because this actually plays into something that Rand Paul was talking about. when the Daily Wire was first starting, it was now 10 years ago. We're coming up on our 10-year anniversary. So say it was maybe 9 years ago. I had a terrible, terrible pain in my arm, and my arm grew very weak. And I knew this was happening. I'd given up tennis because I no longer had strength in my arms to hit the ball properly. And I knew something was wrong, and it was nerve damage or something. And I tried everything. I went to a chiropractor, which I would never do again. I got, all kinds of physical therapy, and nothing worked. Finally, I went to a surgeon. My doctor sent me to a surgeon, and he said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut open your spine. We're going to take out, your spine, the rings in your spine are crushed, because I've lived a kind of outdoor adventure life, and I've fallen a lot. I've fallen off cliffs. I've fallen in water. I've fallen all sorts of places, just climbing around like a crazy man. And my spine was damaged. And he said, I'm going to take out, the rings in your spine. I'm going to replace them with a metal ring. And I thought about that, and I thought, let me get back to you. And I started to think about it. And I thought, well, I called up a few friends who'd had back surgery. They said, don't do it. It's awful. It never goes away. You have to go back more and more surgery, and it keeps collapsing, and it doesn't matter. So I thought, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up the muscles around the place. He showed me the x-rays. And I'm going to build up those muscles, and maybe the muscles will take the place of the spinal column and kind of hold me up. So that's 9 years ago, and it actually worked. I work out with light weights. It's kind of embarrassing to work out with 10-pound weights, but it helps me to keep those specific muscles strengthened, and it kept me, the pain went away completely. The pain went away entirely. When I'm sick like this and I haven't been able to get to the gym for a week, I start to feel it again. But now it's 9 years have gone by without anybody cutting my spine open. Now, do I think I'm a doctor? Do I think that guy has less medical information? That surgeon had less medical information than me? No, I think this is my body. I think this is my life, and I have to make the decisions about what I'm going to do with my life. So do I think I'm a theologian? I say a million times on the show, whenever I speak theology, I always say I'm not a theologian. I'm an extremely well-read person. I listen to theologians. I listen to the Pope. I loved the last two popes, Pope Benedict XVI and Pope John Paul. I would read them. I've read them again. Pope John Paul II is a terrible writer, but I read them anyway. And I listen to them, and I think about what they say very carefully. But in the end, this is my salvation. This is my relationship with God. And I feel very strongly that there are things that God wants me to do and cares about what I do, and there are things that he doesn't care about. He doesn't care about my judgment of other people, my moral judgment of other people, except in my magisterium, which is the world. In the world, I have to make judgments. You a child, and I want to make sure you get a fair trial and are then hanged, preferably from a lamppost where everybody can see you and where the crows poke out your eyes. But I don't judge what God is thinking about you. I don't know what God is thinking about you. He may see something entirely different. He's God. So I don't have to deal with a lot of the questions that theologians have to deal with. I only have to deal with the fact, the requests, the orders on me to love God and love my neighbors, and act in that love as much as I know how and as much as I can. And so I'm not a doctor, but I can make a decision about my body when the doctor lays out my choices for me. I'm not the Pope, but I can make a decision about what I think my responsibility is to my God when I read a lot and I read the scripture, and I decide you're never certain. You're looking for certainty. That's what we don't have. The world is meant to be uncertain. That's why we require faith. All right, with that, I'm going into the member block, which means the rest of you who are not members are just sad, Klavanless, lost lambs wandering in a darkness impossible to describe, because that's how dark it is. Words just disappear. They become silent in that darkness. They disappear and just become utterly silent, and you're just left in the dark. So become a member today. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe and use code Klavan at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. Do it quickly before the darkness of Klavanlessness closes in on you for all eternity. The rest of you, come to Member Block.